Ever experienced flow state? That state where you're maybe working on your business, or maybe you're playing a sport, maybe you're practicing an instrument, and all external distractions just disappear, and your attention is fully focused on the task at hand. And you're not worried about the outcomes, you're not worried about if what you're doing is going to pay off. You're just fully focused on the task at hand, and you have this sense of clarity, of peace, of calm, and results happen naturally. What if I told you that flow state doesn't just have to be for a specific task? What if I told you that you can live your life in flow state? Right? Imagine a life where opportunities just come to you. The people you meet just propel you forward in life, right? Money, success, all these things just naturally come to you, almost effortlessly. And from the outside, it appears as if you're living life on easy mode. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is possible. Okay, that is possible. To understand how to enter this state of flow and live your life in flow state, you need to first understand what flow state actually is at the standard level. So flow state is typically when you're working on something, like I said, when you're working on something and all external things disappear, okay? And what happens is you begin to live in alignment. Two things happen. So first, you become detached. You become detached from the outcomes. You become detached from the need to see that what you're doing is worth it. You become detached from all these external things, which are the ego. And then number two, you become in alignment. You're in alignment with your true self, and you're operating from that true self on the task at hand, right? When you're detached, you can begin to live in alignment, and the things that you focus on, the things that you set your mind to, give results effortlessly. To understand how to actually get to this point, well, first you have to understand is flow state cannot be forced. You cannot sit there, snap your fingers, and enter flow state. It happens naturally. Because when you try to force flow state, what that is the ego's need for survival. So the ego is a self-defense mechanism. It is a human, primal, natural state that protects the identity. So the identity is who you think you are, is is the experiences that you've had throughout your life, is what you tell yourself you are. It's how you view yourself. And so the ego serves the identity. It serves the identity to protect you. And the ego is not some villain that's trying to destroy your life, okay? But the ego does not know what is best for you. So to enter this state of flow, you must first learn to detach. Detach from the ego. Detach from the fear of failure. Detach from the need for success. A lot of people won't tell you that, to detach from the need for success, right? But the reason why you must do that is because those are operating from the same level of attachment, okay? Because to understand detachment, you first must understand attachment, right? What does it mean to be attached to things? So if you are attached to success, right? If let's say you need success, you need money, and that's all you ever think about is just becoming successful, is making a bunch of money. That's great, right? Who doesn't want a bunch of money? But what happens is you begin to block the flow of life. You begin to block the alignment, right? You need to think of a flow state as a current, as a river, right? It has water flowing. And when you try to attach to these things, when you try to say, I need this to happen by this certain time, what you're doing is you're trying to control the flow of that water. You're trying to say, no, I want the river to go this way. But it doesn't work like that. And as much as you might try, the river's not meant to go that way. It's meant to go the path that it has for itself. Okay? And so when you're attached to the need for success, right, what happens is you start to rush the timing. You start to feel like you have to reach this point at this certain time. And you make irrational decisions because you are operating out of attachment, because you feel like you need to achieve this. When you're attached to money, you operate out of a state of urgency. You operate out of a state of survival. And your actions become transactional. Your actions become, does this make me money? Okay, and when you release these attachments, when you let go of these things, you allow yourself to be detached. And when you are detached from the outcomes, when you're detached from the emotions that control you, you allow the current of flow to operate freely through you. Okay? Now, to understand how to detach from these things, you have to first become aware. You have to become aware of what these things actually are. So I'll give some examples, right? So let's say you're afraid of making a phone call. You applied to a job and you want to call the place, but you're afraid that they're going to say no. You're afraid that they're going to reject you. What you need to do is you need to take a step back and you just say, okay, why am I afraid? Why am I fearful of being rejected? And when you do that, you'll realize, okay, that's the ego trying to protect me from being rejected. That is the ego trying to protect me. That's what it is. It's trying to protect you. Or let's say you say something or do something to impress somebody else, and you don't actually feel that way. You don't actually believe that thing. When you take a step back and you become aware of it, and you ask yourself, why did I do this? Why did I act this certain way? Then you realize, okay, that's the ego's need for validation. That's the ego's need to belong. Okay, and when you become aware of the ego, when you become aware of the things, of the thoughts, the emotions, and the identity that you have programmed, right? Because your identity is programmed based off all the things you've experienced in life, right? Your identity is the experiences that you've lived. It is the traumas that you've had. It is who you think you are. And you need to let go of that. And when you let go of that, you're not giving up control, okay? You're becoming in alignment with your true self. Okay, so first step is detach. Detach from the outcomes. Detach from the emotions, from the thoughts, from the ego. And when you detach, you can begin to live in a state of alignment. Now, the same way I explained detachment and attachment, I'll explain alignment. So what does it mean to live out of alignment with your true self, with your consciousness, with your spirit, soul, awareness, whatever you want to call it? We are spiritual beings operating through flesh and blood. Okay, animals are flesh and blood. Humans are flesh and blood. So why are we different from animals? Because we are conscious. We are aware of our existence. So if you are not aware of your consciousness, you are unconscious. You are sleepwalking. And you are being controlled by your ego. You're being controlled by your human desires, your urges. And so when you live out of alignment with that true self, you act, you behave, and you have emotions that feed the ego, that feed the identity, right? You have anxiety, you have stress about the future because you're relying on the material things that you can see. You're relying on your sense of self, okay? And this results in fear, anxiety, stress. Now, when you're living in alignment, you are in a state of clarity. And what that feels like is calm, peace, trust, and you begin to have a sense of clarity of what you're supposed to do, of what you're meant to do. Because we all have our own individual senses of self, right? We all have our own things that we are meant to do. Maybe it's become, a successful entrepreneur. Maybe it's become a professional athlete and become a master at your craft. Maybe it's to become a beautiful musician or an artist. We all have our own true self. And when you live in alignment, you stop operating out of the things that you are programmed to become, out of the things that your parents tell you to do. Go to college, get a good job, or the school system, right? Or your friends, or all these external things that you see, right? That are trying to control you, that are trying to tell you, do this, live this type of life. Don't do this, follow these rules, right? And when you live in alignment, you have this sense of clarity of who you are and what you're supposed to do. And when you live in alignment, even failure becomes an opportunity. Because when you fail, instead of hating yourself and being mad at yourself and feeling like you're not worthy, you take a step back and you say, okay, that is an opportunity for me to grow. That is an opportunity for me to learn. You see, I live in alignment with my true self. I live in alignment with who I'm meant to be. And when you do that, you are not stressed about the things that happen. You're not stressed about the time that it takes to achieve these things. Because my goal is not to achieve a bunch of money. It is not to achieve a bunch of success. It's not to have a Lamborghini or a cool watch. It is to become the version of myself that is capable of receiving those things. You see the difference? When you begin to live in alignment, the sole focus is you. The sole focus is who you must become. And money, success, opportunity, those things become a byproduct of who you are, right? That is cause and effect. The cause is the input. I focus on what can I do to move forward? What inputs can I do to achieve this version of myself? What would this version of myself that has all these things that I desire, that lives the life that I want, what would he do right now? And so as you begin to live in alignment with your true self, with your consciousness, with your awareness, with your spirit, with your soul, you're able to move. That consciousness is able to move freely through you. And you enter this flow state of life where the work that you do feels effortless. The opportunities that come to you feel like you spoke it into existence. Reality begins to transform towards your will, towards what you desire, towards what you want to become. And not only that, but you're no longer stressed. You're no longer anxious, because you know that even with all the money in the world, or even if you're sleeping under a bridge, when you have that relationship with yourself, when you have that trust in yourself, and you are aligned with who you really are, it doesn't matter what byproduct happens out of the inputs that you put in. Because you know, at the end of the day, who you are, who you became along this journey, is everything that you need to be. Because when you are attached to money, when you're attached to success, and that is all you crave, when your whole goal is to make so much money so that way you can buy a cool car, what happens is one day you will get there. Hopefully. One day you will get to that point where you do achieve all those things. You do make a bunch of money. But what happens is you buy that car and you realize it means nothing. It means nothing. Because once you realize that, every level, there's always going to be another level. There's always going to be people that are above you. There's always going to be higher levels to reach. And when you're constantly chasing that, you're always lacking fulfillment. But when the sole focus is you, when the sole focus is the process, the journey, becoming the version of yourself that is capable of receiving those things, you are always in a state of fulfillment. You're always in a state of gratitude, of happiness. And that is a powerful state, because that means that you can't be controlled. That means that regardless of what happens in your life, whether you get rejected, whether you fail, whether you achieve all your desires, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you are one with yourself. Your body and your mind operate in unison. Okay, because here's the thing. A lot of people operate on two ends of the spectrum. They either live completely in the material world and they operate completely off of their ego, their emotions. They see a post online and get worked up about it and invoke a reaction and emotions out of it. And they care about material things. That's one end. The other end is some people, they start to realize this stuff about consciousness and about awareness, and that, there are deeper levels to reality, and they live in their mind. They live in this state of nothing is real, nothing matters, and they just completely exit society, right? Both of those are wrong. You need to understand that the mind and the body are one. The mind and the body must act in unison. And so you must combine the two. Instead of living a life, ran by your ego, ran by your identity, you control your ego. You control your thoughts. You control your emotions. And you understand that you are conscious. You understand that you are aware of these thoughts. You understand that you are aware of your existence. And together, that becomes powerful. Because then you are grounded. You are grounded in reality. You are grounded in consciousness. And when you have this knowledge, and when you realize the power that this holds, it becomes so clear that everything that you desire, everything that you put your mind towards, everything that you want, if you live in alignment, it will come to you. I mean, how crazy is that? To realize that you have full control. You have full power over your reality, over your existence, over the life that you live. And the only thing that is holding you back, the only thing that is limiting you from entering this state of flow, from living life freely, is just your mind. And when you detach from the ego, you detach from the outcomes, and you detach from the material things of this world, and you live in alignment, your reality can be anything that you desire.